All right, we are here at the event for Americans for Comprehensive Education Reform. With us speaking today is Jon Hardister, who I'm flipping around. All right, say hi, Jon. Jon is the NC House Majority Whip and sits on the Education Committee, among other committees. And he's going to be talking to us today about where he sees education in North Carolina and where he sees it going.
Okay, sounds good. Well, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. As you said, my name is Jon Hardister. It's my honor to serve as the North Carolina House Majority Whip from Guilford County, North Carolina House District 59. I'm currently in my fourth term, which is kind of hard to believe because time goes by quickly. I'm kind of surprised I don't have more gray hair than what I've got now. I'm going on 8 years in the General Assembly. It's been an interesting experience so far. As you mentioned, I do serve on the House Education Committee. Education is something that I'm very passionate about. It's something that most everyone in the state of North Carolina cares about. We spend approximately 57% of our state budget on public education. Of course, that covers a lot of area, K-12. We do some work within pre-K, and of course, the community college system, university system. And I'm proud of the work that we've done. When Republicans came into the majority in 2010 and then took a supermajority in 2012, education was in a pretty difficult situation in North Carolina. We faced a situation where the former Democratic majority had actually cut education funding 2 years in a row and froze teacher pay stubs. And we decided that something needs to be done about this. So what we did is we worked to improve the economy. We enacted a variety of reforms, including tax reform, regulatory reform, and did things to grow the economy. We tightened the budget. We tightened our belt with the budget, but we did that prudently by investing in the core services of government. And we actually increased funding for education since 2011, I think by approximately $2.5 billion or more. And we've done that the way it's supposed to be done, which is to grow the economy and to, as I said, invest in the core services of government, which is education, public safety, transportation. We're one of only approximately 12 states that has a AAA credit rating. Prior to the hurricanes we had last year, we had nearly $2 billion in the rainy day account. And as far as education is concerned, as I mentioned before, and I want to make very clear that, in my opinion, and I think the opinion of my colleagues, General Assembly, education is not partisan. It's not supposed to be, it never should be. But we do have to set the record straight, because in the last few election cycles, we've seen a situation where education has been politicized. We have seen a situation where Republicans have been criticized for cutting education funding. In some cases, we've been accused of cutting teacher pay. The opposite is true. We have increased teacher pay probably by an average of at least 15% since 2013. In fact, if we're able to enact a budget this year, that'll be 6 years in a row that we've provided teachers with a pay increase. Again, education funding's gone up by over $2.5 billion. We've seen textbook funding tripled, but we've done that while also expanding school choice. My belief, and I think the belief of many of my colleagues in General Assembly on the Republican side and on the Democratic side as well, is that parents need to have choice. Children need to have opportunity. If you look at the different facets of our society, if you look at the economy, within a free market, choice is always a good thing. We need that in education as well. And that's why we lifted the cap on charter schools. Now there's somewhere around 200 plus charter schools in the state. We have enacted the opportunity scholarships for low-income students so they can have choices, as well as the disability scholarships for children who have a learning disability. And then, recently we've taken some action with education savings accounts, again, for low-income students. And these programs have been very successful. What I say is that these programs for choice are not meant to supplant or to be harmful to the traditional public school system. They're meant to be a supplement, to be a choice. And again, that choice is a good thing. there's a lot of misinformation when it comes to charter schools. Prior to being elected to the North Carolina House, I did have the opportunity to serve for 2 years on the board of a charter school. It's called Greensboro Academy in Greensboro. And I found that experience to be very enlightening. I really enjoyed it. And I learned a lot about the process of how a charter school operates. And what I found, of course, is that charter schools are held accountable. And they're held accountable, one, by the state, by DPI. And if you have 2 out of 3 years where your proficiency is dropping, you can be put on probation, and your charter, in certain cases, if you don't get the school operating efficiently, can be taken away. Also, charter schools have to be audited, for financial purposes. And third, and perhaps most importantly, is parents and guardians. They hold the schools accountable. And I actually saw that firsthand when I was on the board of a charter school, because parents would come to the board and they would voice their concerns. And that there's no entity that can hold a school more accountable than a parent or a guardian. And of course, that's something I learned. As far as the opportunity scholarships and the disability grants, again, those programs have been very successful. It's for low-income students who, in some cases, would like to have choices outside the traditional school system, as well as the disability grants, for children who have a learning disability. If students qualify, then parents will have the choice, but they're not forced to send their child to a private school. It's a choice. It's made by the parent, and that decision would involve the child in many cases. The family would have a discussion, and again, I think it's very important to have that situation. So when it comes to education, I wouldn't say that I'm an expert, but what I believe is that it's not one size fits all. Every child is different. Every child learns differently. They need to be in different environments. So I say that what we can do is we can support the traditional school system, which we've done, and we can demonstrate that we've done that. Again, I'll reiterate, funding's going up, teacher pay's going up, and a word on teacher pay. When we came into the majority, when Republicans came into the majority, teacher pay was already low. It had dropped down to somewhere around 45th in the nation, maybe lower, somewhere in the mid to low 40s. And then, since then, it has increased to now we're probably around 29th in the country, and we could be higher than that, after we enact this budget this year. But again, if you adjust for cost of living, we're probably even higher than that. Because you can look at some other states, like northeastern states, where teachers make, on paper, more money, but the cost of living is so much higher. So I want to make it clear that we care very much about our teachers. I visit schools frequently, K through 12 schools, K through 12 grade levels, and I really enjoy meeting the teachers. I have tremendous respect for what they do. What they do is very difficult, and it's a very important job, and we respect them. But we can do that while also having the choice within the education marketplace, the charter schools, which, as I said, they are being held accountable, as well as the opportunity scholarships, the disability scholarships. And I think, at the risk of sounding immodest, and again, this is a team effort. This is something that Republicans and Democrats have done together. North Carolina is a leader in education. I really believe that we are. We're a leader in a lot of the work that we've done. We do have, just to be candid, some issues with the NCAE, for example, which I have respect for, but they, in my opinion, they sometimes take more of a politicized approach to this whenever I think we all want to be collaborative. And I think at the end of the day, that's really what it's all about. And then final thing I want to touch on is higher education. We have a tremendous community college system in North Carolina. I'm a major proponent of trade skills, and that's something that we're enhancing within the community college system across the state. We're trying to help students, particularly in high school, understand that they have options outside of a 4-year degree, outside of a master's degree. There's many different pathways to success. And I can tell you from personal experience, some of my friends who I went to school with who didn't go to a 4-year school have turned out to be extremely successful. I have a friend, he's my age, we graduated high school together, and he owns a landscaping company. And he started off just landscaping residential homes, and then he grew his company, and now he does a lot of commercial shopping centers, and he's just done extremely well for himself. I have a friend who's an electrician, who's a plumber. They do extremely well. So that's another thing that we're working on. One program that I'm very proud of is the apprenticeship program that we've enacted. General Assembly is funded, where students can get out of high school and graduate, and for 2 years go to a community college, go to class, but then they can work as an apprentice. And they can do something such as welding or an HVAC technician or something of that nature. Do that for a 2-year period, graduate with no debt, and have a good job that pays well. And there's also upward mobility there. And then as far as our university system is concerned, we've worked hard and we've been very successful at keeping tuition low and making our universities accessible. We enacted the NC Promise program for certain universities that's locked in a low tuition rate. We've also made it where when a student enrolls in a university, they can lock in their tuition for a 4-year period. And we also put limits on the amount in which universities can raise fees. And we've also worked with the Board of Governors to ensure that the programs being offered within our university system are programs that will result in the student getting a job and achieving success. So I'm proud of the work that we've done. Again, it should never be political. Education certainly relates to our economic success and job creation opportunity, and I appreciate the opportunity to share my thoughts.
Absolutely, thank you. Anyone have any questions for Mr. Hardister? Okay. The only question I would have is we're hearing a lot about how technology is being leveraged. Any thoughts on where you see that heading from what's been brought before you guys now, or the kinds of discussions you've had at the state level where you're setting policy? In terms of incentivizing the use of technology in our classrooms? Anything that's kind of jumped out at you that maybe has been touted as a success or that works, or a model you'd like to see us move towards, just as a thought?
Yeah, so technology is a major part of the conversation we're having currently related to public education. I think there's some mixed thoughts within the realm of technology. We know that we need it, and we have expanded broadband access for public schools in North Carolina. But there are mixed thoughts within that debate on technology. There are some folks within education who think that it's better to be old school, to have textbooks, and then there's some who think that we need to expand technology and ensure that every student has a tablet or has a computer. It does involve a cost, though. You're looking at a situation where if you're going to have tablets and computers, if you have that access, there's definitely a cost involved. But we can't deny where we are now as a society. Computers are everywhere. A cell phone, if it's a smartphone, is a computer that you hold in your hand. So I do think we can utilize technology for educational purposes, but I don't know if we quite have figured out exactly where we want to go with that. But we're definitely talking about it. And we have study committees that are looking at exactly that topic. We just want to make sure that we do the right thing. Because, again, I'm not an expert in education, but in certain ways, I feel like we need to stick to the basics. Students need to read. They need to be able to do basic math on grade level. They need to learn history. All the basics. Now, what's the best way to convey the knowledge to the student? So if it involves education, I think that's wonderful. We just have to make sure we do it the right way.
Excellent. All right, well then, with that, yeah.
Related to that, and I totally agree with you, we've got to find the right balance. The one thing that concerns me, and a lot of stuff I've been reading and seeing over really the last year or so, because a lot of this is so new that they're just now starting to establish some of the understandings, that there are some very scary studies starting to show up when children under the age of 10 have high level screen time, that it's actually affecting the way that their brains develop as opposed to reading books. And I just hope that y'all will consider that as you're looking at this, because it's becoming more and more understood that it actually is, they're saying it can change how the brain actually is wired, or how the brain develops in a child from screen exposure.
Yeah, I think that's a very important point, and that's exactly the kind of feedback we need. I believe I actually read that article that you cited, and I'm sure there's several articles that
I think I may have shared it with you, actually.
you probably did. Again, technology where it is today is relatively new, and I see 2- and 3-year-olds using a smartphone, and it's incredible how quickly they can develop the ability and dexterity and the cognitive ability to operate a computer. But then we have to wonder, what's the long-term impact? Is it positive? Is it negative? And I think we don't quite know the answer to that.
All right. Representative, I got a question, and I appreciate you coming out. Oftentimes in our K-12 system, it seems that every year we're having conversations about school grades and the weighting between growth and proficiency. Can you talk a little bit about your position on proficiency versus growth, and how a school should be assessed?
Yeah.
Is that so? So the mic picks it up. I'm just making sure. So you're talking about the connection between advancing in a grade level chronologically versus the proficiency required to do so?
Now, the representative can probably go into talking a little bit about growth and proficiency. And
I think you're talking about how schools are rated.
yeah, there's two different assessments, right? In terms of how the students are doing on tests, right? On end of grade, end of course type tests, and then statistically how their students are performing relative to their peers in a cohort, which is what calculates growth. There's a system that SAS developed called EVOS that we use for growth in the state of North Carolina.
Yeah, so right now we're weighted towards proficiency, and my opinion is it ought to be an even split. I think that gives you a better synopsis of where we are. I think a 50-50 split would make sense, but as the system currently stands, it's weighted, is it 80-20? I think towards proficiency, and my opinion on that is it's not quite fair to those schools that may be lower performing, but they're getting better, they're showing progress, and I think there's something to be said for growth, because that's what you want to see. So
well,
I
think that's the challenge, because the school's penalized for the students that walk through its doors, as opposed to being rewarded for the growth of the individual students. Right. So, yeah, appreciate that.
Exactly.
Well, all right then. Well, thank you very much for your time. If anyone wants to leave additional questions for Representative Hardister in the comment section, I'll see that he sees them. We'll try to get answers to you based on that. But again, thank you very much for coming out today.
One more.
Oh, all right.
That is, talk a little bit about early education. That is preschool, North Carolina pre-K, and other early education opportunities. How do you envision the importance of preschool, or is it nothing more than glorified babysitting?
I value pre-K. The state has invested in pre-K slots. We're looking to expand pre-K slots for low-income families, and the budget that was proposed this year. I've actually read some studies on that the brain's developing on day one. It doesn't begin developing when you enter kindergarten. It develops before that. So I think pre-K is important, and we all know that children have different family situations and different educational situations early on. It's important for the parent or the guardian to be interactive with the child as they're very young, but preschool can help in that regard. So I think pre-K is great. It's good, and it's something that I think we should continue to work on.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you again for coming out today and speaking on these things. And again, anyone has additional questions, put them in that comment section, and we will get them to the representative. Thanks a lot.
Got it. Thanks.